Sometimes love doesn't walk through the door. It comes through a mistake. Helen, a hardworking young woman, answers a call she was never meant to take. On the other side of the line is Anthony, a billionaire whose heart had been locked away for years. That one wrong call turns into late-night conversations, stolen emotions, and a love that no one could stop. But when two strangers fall for each other without even meeting, will destiny bring them together or tear them apart? This is a story of suspense, romance, and a lesson for us all, proving that love knows no rules, no distance, and no boundaries. Helen sat at her desk, her hands resting lightly on the keyboard. The office was quiet that evening, almost too quiet except for the soft hum of computers left on by co-workers who had already gone home. She was alone, tired, her shoulders aching from another long day. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She didn't even glance at the number. She thought it was her boss checking on a project. Without thinking, she picked it up. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, weary, but polite. On the other end, a deep voice replied, calm but commanding. "Finally! I've been waiting." Helen blinked, confused. She didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't her boss, wasn't any client she knew. I think you've got the wrong number," she whispered, already reaching to end the call. But before she could, the voice continued, rich and smooth. "Maybe it's a mistake, or maybe—" He paused, his tone carrying mystery. "Maybe it's fate." Helen's hand froze. Something about the way he said it made her heart pound faster. She tried to laugh it off. "I'm sorry, you definitely have the wrong person." "No," the man said firmly, his voice steady, unshaken. "Not wrong. Not tonight." A shiver ran down her spine. Why did his voice feel so different? There was something about the way he spoke. Powerful, but not arrogant. Intense, but strangely gentle. "Who are you?" Helen asked, curiosity slipping into her tone despite herself. The man chuckled softly, a sound that sent heat rushing to her cheeks. "That's the question, isn't it? Who am I? And why do I feel like I already know you?" Her breath caught. She didn't know how to respond. This was ridiculous, wasn't it? Just a random call. A stranger. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to hang up. Her heart was thumping so hard she thought he might hear it over the phone. She leaned back in her chair, pressing the phone tighter to her ear. "Look, I really should go. I'm at work." "And yet," he said smoothly, "you're still here, still listening." Helen's lips parted, but no words came. He was right. She should have ended this call minutes ago, but something kept her there. Something deeper than reason. "I don't even know your name," she whispered finally. "Not yet," he replied softly. "But you will. And when you do, you'll understand why this call had to happen." Her pulse quickened. His words were strange but not threatening. Instead, they felt magnetic, as if they were pulling her closer to something she didn't understand. She swallowed hard. "This is crazy," she murmured. "Crazy," the man repeated with quiet amusement. "Or destiny." The line fell into silence for a moment, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Helen could hear his breathing, steady and sure, and for reasons she couldn't explain, it steadied her too. Finally, she whispered, "I don't even know who you are." "Then let's start simple," he said. "Tell me your name." Helen's lips trembled. Every instinct told her not to reveal anything. He was a stranger, a voice in the dark. And yet, she wanted to answer. She wanted him to know her. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she pressed the phone tighter to her ear and whispered, "Goodbye." And she hung up. Her hand lingered on the phone, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. She told herself it was just a wrong call, a mistake, nothing more. But deep down, she already knew. Her life had just changed forever. Anthony Walker was not a man who remembered voices. At 36, he was a billionaire who spent his life in boardrooms on private jets and in meetings where people spoke only about numbers, profits, and power. Voices blended together, polished, fake, and empty. But her voice, That one he couldn't forget. The moment she said, "Hello," something inside him shifted. He replayed it in his head all night. The softness, the honesty, and a tiny thread of sadness hiding beneath it. He lay awake in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a stranger's voice could feel so much like home. The next morning, he reached for his phone before his coffee. His finger hovered over the call history. Should he? Shouldn't he? He told himself no. Billionaires didn't chase random phone numbers. He had empires to run, contracts to sign, 100 people waiting for his decisions. And yet, as hours dragged on, he found himself glancing at the screen again and again. By afternoon, he couldn't resist anymore. He pressed her number. The call rang. Once, twice. His heartbeat picked up like he was a teenager again. Then, her voice. "Hello?" He exhaled, closing his eyes. That voice. It was real. She was real. "Don't hang up," he said quickly, almost pleading. "I know last night was strange, but I couldn't stop thinking about you." There was silence on the other end. He imagined her frowning, confused. Finally, she said cautiously, "You're the wrong number, man." Anthony laughed quietly. "Or the right one." Her tone sharpened. "Why are you calling me again? You don't even know me." "That's just it," he replied, his voice deep and steady. "I want to know you. Tell me your name." She hesitated. He could almost hear her breathing, light and nervous. He pictured her sitting at her desk again, maybe biting her lip, maybe glancing around to see if anyone noticed her whispering into the phone. "I don't give my name to strangers," she said finally. Anthony leaned back in his leather chair, smiling to himself. "Then don't think of me as a stranger. Think of me as someone who was meant to call you." She sighed. "You're unbelievable." "Unbelievable?" He chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." But her silence told him she was torn. He didn't want to scare her away. He wanted her to feel safe. He wanted her to trust him. And that was strange, because he had never cared so deeply about what any woman thought. "Helen," she said suddenly. He froze. "What?" "My name," she whispered, as if she couldn't believe she was saying it. "It's Helen." Anthony's lips curved into a slow smile. He repeated it, tasting the sound of it. "Helen." She shifted on the other end, nervous. "Now you know. Satisfied?" "No," he said softly, his voice dropping lower. "Now I'm hungry for more." Helen's pulse raced. Why did his words feel like they were wrapping around her heart? Why did her name sound different, sweeter, when he said it? "Listen," she said quickly, trying to control her emotions. "I don't have time for games. I have a real job, real deadlines, real problems." "And I'm real too," Anthony interrupted gently. "I may have found you by mistake, but I'm not letting this mistake slip away." Her breath caught. His voice wasn't arrogant. It wasn't pushy. It was firm, steady, and strangely full of longing. She should have ended the call, but she didn't. That night, Helen went home to her small apartment, tossing and turning in bed, hearing his voice again and again. And in his penthouse, Anthony stared out at the city lights, whispering her name into the silence. Two people, two very different worlds, and one voice neither of them could forget. Days passed, and the calls didn't stop. At first, Helen told herself she wouldn't answer. She was too busy, too cautious, too smart to waste time on a stranger with a deep, addictive voice. But when her phone lit up with his number, her heart betrayed her. She always picked up. Every conversation left her more curious. Anthony never pressured her, never bragged about who he was. Instead, he asked about her day, her work, her favorite books, her childhood memories. He listened, really listened, in a way no one ever had before. Helen began to notice something strange. His voice carried warmth, but also loneliness. He laughed sometimes, but behind it was an emptiness, like a man who had everything yet nothing at all. One evening, after another long call, Anthony's voice turned serious. "Helen, let's meet." Her eyes widened. "Meet? You mean in person?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "Dinner. One evening. If you don't like me, you'll never hear from me again." But if you come, maybe you'll understand what I've been searching for." Her heart raced. The idea thrilled her, but also scared her. Meeting a man she barely knew? A stranger? "Anthony, this isn't a movie," she whispered. "This is real life. I can't just meet someone who called me by accident." His tone softened. "You think it was an accident?" "No, Helen. I think it was the only right thing that's ever happened to me." Her breath caught. His words wrapped around her heart like a promise. She tried to argue with herself. She wasn't the type of woman who did reckless things. She had rules, boundaries, common sense, but something about him made her want to break every rule. Finally, after a long silence, she whispered, "Where?" Anthony smiled on the other end, relief flooding his chest. "A quiet restaurant. Nothing fancy, just us. Tomorrow night." The next evening, Helen stood outside the restaurant, her heart hammering so loudly she thought everyone passing by could hear it. She had chosen a simple dress, nothing too bold, but her hands still trembled as she smoothed the fabric down. "What am I doing?" she muttered to herself. She almost turned around, almost walked away. Then the door opened and she saw him. Anthony Walker, tall, broad-shouldered, a tailored suit that fit him like it was made for him. His presence filled the doorway, but it wasn't his wealth or looks that froze her. It was his eyes. Dark, piercing, but carrying something vulnerable. Something that told her he wasn't here to play games. For the first time in years, Anthony felt nervous. He had faced billion-dollar deals without blinking, but now his palms were sweating. Because the woman standing before him wasn't like anyone else. She was the voice that had haunted his nights. "Helen?" he breathed, his gaze locking on her. Her name sounded different on his lips, richer, deeper. "You're even more beautiful than your voice," he whispered, stepping closer. Helen's cheeks burned. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. His eyes held her like a spell. In that moment, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't just curious anymore. She was already falling. Dinner became the beginning of something neither of them expected. Anthony wasn't the man Helen had imagined. He wasn't loud, arrogant, or showy. He didn't try to impress her with stories of power or wealth. Instead, he asked her about her dreams, her struggles, the things that made her laugh. Helen found herself opening up, slowly, carefully. She told him about her small apartment, about working late hours just to pay bills, about the exhaustion that followed her every day. She wasn't proud of it, but somehow, with him, she felt safe enough to be honest. Anthony listened, his eyes never leaving hers. For once, he didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like a man desperate to understand the woman sitting across from him. Yet, even as she laughed at his quiet jokes and allowed herself to enjoy the evening, Helen's walls stayed high. Later, as they walked together down a quiet street, Anthony finally asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Helen, tell me, why are you holding back from me?" She froze. The night air was cool, brushing against her skin, but the real chill came from the fear she carried deep inside. "I don't trust easily," she admitted softly. "I've seen people promise forever and leave without warning. I've seen love turn into heartbreak. And you? You're a man who could break me without even trying." Her words cut through him like glass. Anthony stopped walking and turned to face her. His voice was steady but filled with quiet pain. "I would never hurt you. Do you think I'm here to play games? Helen, I don't need games. I've had wealth, luxury, and attention all my life, but none of it ever touched my heart. Until you." Helen's eyes shimmered with doubt. "Why me? You could have anyone. Women throw themselves at men like you. Models, actresses, rich women, people who belong in your world. Not me." Anthony stepped closer, his gaze intense, his words deliberate. "That's exactly why. Everyone else wanted me for my money, my name, my power. But you didn't even want to answer my call. You weren't impressed, you weren't desperate, you were just real. And Helen, I've been searching my whole life for real." Her heart trembled. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, but her fears were still loud. Could she really believe him? Could she really let him into her guarded world? She lowered her eyes, whispering, "I don't want to be just another chapter in your life." Anthony gently reached for her hand, lifting her chin with the other so she would look at him. His voice softened. "You won't be. You're not a chapter, Helen. You're the book. You're the story I've been waiting to live." Her breath hitched, and for a moment the walls around her heart began to crack. But as she pulled her hand back, she whispered, "I'm scared." Anthony's chest ached at her words, but instead of arguing, he gave a small nod. "Then let me fight your fears. Let me prove to you that not all men walk away. I'll stay until you believe me." Helen's heart melted at the promise, though her lips trembled with doubt. She wanted to believe. She wanted to step into this dangerous, beautiful unknown. As they stood in the soft glow of streetlights, Helen realized something frightening. Her walls were strong, but Anthony's presence was stronger, and for the first time in years she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let them fall. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Helen had ever known. Anthony didn't overwhelm her with gifts or grand gestures. Instead, he showed up in the smallest ways, the kind that mattered most. He brought her coffee when she worked late. He walked her home when the streets felt too empty. He called just to hear her voice, even if only for a minute. Yet, Helen's heart was still cautious. She liked him, more than liked him, but the fear of being hurt again lingered like a shadow. She told herself not to fall too fast, not to believe too deeply. One evening, Anthony invited her somewhere special. "No business meetings, no fancy restaurants," he promised. "Just you and me." When Helen arrived, she gasped. He had taken her to his private garden, a hidden sanctuary tucked behind his estate. It wasn't glittering with wealth or decorated with jewels. Instead, it was quiet, full of roses, ivy-covered arches, and soft lanterns glowing like stars on earth. Helen's chest tightened. "This is beautiful." Anthony looked at her, not the garden. "It's nothing compared to you." Her cheeks warmed, but before she could reply, he grew serious. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and unguarded. For the first time, she saw the man behind the billionaire, the one who longed for something money couldn't buy. "Helen," he began, his voice low, "from the moment you answered that call, my life has not been the same. I thought I had everything, but I didn't even know what living meant until I heard your voice." Helen's breath caught. She turned slightly, staring at the roses swaying in the breeze, afraid of the intensity in his eyes. "Anthony, I don't want to be someone you think you want now, but later regret." He stepped closer, gently touching her hand. His voice trembled with emotion. "Do you think I would risk everything just to play with your heart? Helen, I could lose 1,000 businesses and still survive, but losing you, that would destroy me." Her heart skipped a beat. The vulnerability in his words shook her. "Anthony," she whispered, "you scare me." His brow furrowed. "Scare you?" "Yes," she said, her eyes glistening, "because you make me hope again. And hope is dangerous." Anthony took her hands fully now, his gaze locked on hers. "Then let me turn your hope into certainty. Let me fight every doubt you have. I don't want a part of you, Helen. I want all of you. From now on, you're mine. Not as a possession, but as the only woman I'll ever love." Her lips parted, but no words came. The power in his confession wrapped around her heart like fire and ice at once. She had wanted to believe no one could love her like this, and yet here he was, standing before her, shattering every fear she clung to. For a moment, she let herself imagine it. Waking up with him beside her, walking through life together, hand in hand. And for the first time in years, the picture didn't scare her. It felt right. Tears slipped from her eyes. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she whispered. Anthony brushed away her tears with his thumb, his voice breaking as he spoke. "Then I'll be strong enough for both of us." Her walls, the ones she had guarded for so long, finally began to fall. She leaned into his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For once, she wasn't afraid. For once, she let herself believe. That night, under the lanterns and roses, Helen whispered the truth her heart had been hiding. "I don't want to run anymore." And Anthony held her tighter, knowing the test of trust had been passed. Not with wealth, but with love. Months slipped by, and Helen's world had changed in ways she never thought possible. She had once lived a quiet, ordinary life. Wake up, go to work, return to her small apartment, and fall asleep with nothing but exhaustion in her heart. Now she lived with laughter, with warmth, with love. Anthony didn't sweep her into a world of diamonds and flashing lights. He didn't drown her in gifts or parade her around as proof of his wealth. Instead, he stepped into her world. He came to her office with lunch when she skipped meals. He learned how she liked her coffee, 2 sugars, a splash of cream, and brought it to her desk without being asked. He walked with her through the streets where nobody knew his name, holding her hand as if she were the most precious thing in existence. Helen saw something in him no one else cared to see, the lonely man behind the billionaire mask. And Anthony saw in Helen the truth he had been searching for his entire life: love without price, loyalty without conditions. At first, people whispered, "How can a billionaire be with her? She's ordinary. She doesn't belong in his world." But Anthony silenced them not with anger, but with love. At dinners, when others expected him to brag about his empire, he looked at Helen and said, "She is my world." When people doubted her worth, he smiled and replied, "The mistake wasn't her answering my call. The mistake was me living without her before." Helen's heart bloomed every time he spoke. For the first time, she realized love wasn't about status or wealth. It was about presence, loyalty, and the courage to stay. One evening, as they sat in the garden where Anthony had first confessed his heart, Helen whispered, "Do you ever wonder what people think of us?" Anthony smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Let them think. Let them talk. They don't matter. What matters is this." He pressed her hand to his chest, where his heart beat fast and strong. "This is yours. Always." Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "I never thought someone like you could love someone like me." Anthony's grip on her hand tightened. "Helen, don't ever say that. Love doesn't ask about money. Love doesn't care about power. Love just finds you. The world can divide people by class, wealth, or status, but true love doesn't know those rules." Helen's lips trembled with a smile. "You make it sound so simple." "That's because it is," Anthony said, his eyes glistening. "You're mine. I'm yours. That's all we ever need." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder, and for the first time in her life, Helen felt whole. Their story traveled quietly, not through headlines or media, but through the people who saw them together. The billionaire and the ordinary woman. Not a fairy tale, but real. A reminder that love was stronger than prejudice, stronger than whispers, stronger than the walls society built between people. And for those who doubted, Anthony had only one answer. Love is not about what you own. It's about who you choose to hold when the world tries to pull you apart. Helen had answered a call by mistake, but that mistake became the greatest blessing of her life.